Hi everyone, Magnus here. I'm here again with a subscriber of mine, Valentin. We're doing some chess lessons, this time on the Bishop's Opening yet again. We're looking to try and finish up with the opening study, as well as, of course, start with some warm-up puzzles from Puzzlic. We've got quite a few that he played last week, from games that he played last week, which should include very related puzzles to the Bishop's Opening that we're going to be looking at later. And as well as that, we're going to be answering some questions that he had that were raised during games played. So let's get started with the puzzles. We're doing some nice warm-up ones first, which are some pretty common tactical themes. I think you should be able to see the solution to this one fairly quickly, and if not, then it will provide a very good piece of knowledge for later. So what are your thoughts looking at this position, Valentin?
Yeah, so I think it's just bishop takes on f7, and the reason is that we have the f file which is open, and then we can get the bishop on e5 pretty much like for free. Well, not for free, but we want a pawn essentially.
Hmm. Yeah, and because it's the double check,
Yeah.
that looks very strong. And the only other thing to check is what if they ignore it? What if they just decline the bishop?
Well, we still can get the dark squared bishop, and then our bishop is going to be defended, and we can move it back. And the thing is, we won a pawn, and black will not be able to castle anymore. So I think it's just a good move.
Yeah,
Yeah, for some reason I missed this during my game. Pretty obvious. Maybe I forgot that the F file is open.
probably, yeah. It's also quite a normal tactic in the Italian if you're familiar with that, because I think you played something similar like Scotch Italian stuff as well.
Yeah, I used to,
Um,
but when I was like 1200, so
yeah,
maybe I just forgot.
it's true. And I think there might be a slight improvement here with the move pawn to d4, because the bishop actually can't be taken, so you don't have to worry about it.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that knight takes and something like bishop to b3 is equally more than good enough, but it'll probably want the absolute best move, even though I don't think this is that important to the puzzle.
Hmm.
Okay, and on to the next one. This one actually just has a really interesting like blind spot for a lot of people. And I think you'll be able to see it very quickly in the puzzle
Yeah,
format, but seeing it in an actual game is quite difficult. So
yeah, I already see that. So essentially, bishop is defended only by the knight, and we can capture the
hmm,
knight with check, which is the key
yeah.
detail that I probably missed during my game.
But it's
Uh,
so hard to even consider this because this is like your
the
your
strongest
your
piece.
your
Yes,
perfect bishop,
yes.
and it's like how could you give this up? You want to play moves like Rook B1 to try and weaken this diagonal, but when there is just a winning shot like this, then
Yeah,
you got
it's
to go
just
for it.
free piece.
Exactly. Okay, those were the warm-ups. Now we've got two more challenging puzzles. This one I thought was very interesting. The first moves shouldn't be too crazy to find, but there's you have to be able to watch out for your opponent's counter shots, which are really
Mm.
important here. So I'd be interested to see how.
Okay. Well, during the game, I took the pawn, and looks like it's not the
Yeah,
most. Uh, yeah, I don't even know why it's a mistake or whatever it is. Ah, it's missed win. Okay, so I just have something better here.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, hmm. So I see the check on e6,
Hmm.
but I don't see what it does. Like, uh, let's say, well, if king goes there, then we can take the pawn with check.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. We can, yeah. Uh, what if they
Okay.
just block? Then we can win in
There's an
exchange.
exchange, yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I didn't see this.
But this is only the first bit, so we've got up to taking this pawn with check and the king moving over. But how do you actually continue this? Because what's actually quite scary is that black is about
Yeah,
to start some pretty violent attack down on the g file towards your
yeah.
king, which is surprisingly not got many pieces defending it. So
I mean, we won an exchange or we won a pawn, and then we can just because we took it with check. I think we have time to just return the bishop to e3 and defend the square on f4 to
yeah,
prevent the knight
exactly.
going there. And if knight going there, we just take it and we won another pawn. So
That's nice. Yeah, yeah. That looks like the winning solution to me.
Yeah.
The risk of the knight getting into f4 is stuff like bishop to h3, bishop
Mm-hmm.
g2, and then you can get in some serious trouble with all the pieces infiltrating, and the queen can
Yeah.
start to come in. But I think you noticed the knight on f4, which is very nice, and there's nothing to do
Mm-hmm.
after that knight's gone. So that was good.
Okay, that's not too hard.
Okay, but this one is actually quite challenging, just because it's a long calculation and it's got a lot of overlapping themes. Um,
Mm.
once
Oh,
again,
I remember actually this position.
oh, you've seen this one.
I mean, I remember it
Remember from
during
the
the
game?
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in the game, I took the knight on e7,
Yes, but with the
which
bishop.
kind of makes sense because like the knight on f file is kind of trapped after that.
Um,
Uh, no, yeah, yeah, yeah.
wait,
It's so e5 is controlled by the rook.
yes, but they can do something like defending it, I guess.
Uh-huh.
That's
Okay.
probably that's probably the one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, so let's consider taking an other knight on like on f7.
Hmm.
Yeah. Where does e knight gonna go?
I
Okay, let's
guess
go
it
there.
goes here. Ooh, wait.
Yeah, but then we have fork. Yeah, because bishop is no longer controlling this.
So it has to go somewhere else.
Okay, then it
So I guess it
goes.
has to go to c8 because all the other
Yeah,
squares are either defended or blocked. So
yeah.
at least
Oh,
this is forcing, which is good.
okay. It's not even such a bad square for the
No, it's
for
quite funny. It's getting back into the game
yeah,
quite nicely.
yeah, yeah. And it's attacking the pawn on
That's
a7
true as
actually.
well. Well, kind of, not really.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, bishop can move with check after we capture the knight, so it's actually attacking the
Oh
pawn.
right, yeah, that's true. That's true. Good point.
Mm. Yeah, okay. So we take the knight. Knight goes there. What do we have in that position? Hmm.
Yeah, I mean the pieces look very clunky, but it's really hard to actually get to them.
Yeah, I'm looking at just attacking the bishop, but I mean it can move, and especially it can move with check.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
Well, what to do when you get in these situations where you've gone down a reasonable depth and you're not finding anything concrete is to like go back to the broad move selection. So the calculation process, you don't want to get like, completely stuck on like one move. You want to stay broad, and then when you find something that you think is working, then you can go deep. So let's keep considering the other options.
Okay, so do you mean other than taking the knight? Because I
Yeah.
think taking the knight is good. I mean, we have to recapture one of the knights, but and we already know from the puzzle that taking on e7 is a mistake. Well, mistake.
Well, yeah.
I guess it's inaccurate. So yeah, during the game I took the this knight and I think I actually won that game anyway. But so yeah, I'm looking at taking this knight on f7. Then then they need to save the other knight. Yeah,
Mm.
and then so I'm looking for something, some way to win another piece. Like we already no, we are not up a piece, but we are up a couple of pawns, which is good. So it's already like winning advantage. So it would be nice to just
Wait, we're not up any pawns. I don't think.
five. Oh yeah.
It's three. I
Okay,
mean,
it's
our
just
structure's much better, so we are
yeah.
better in the end game, but uh,
Mm.
it is equal pawns. I think you might be missing that this rook is another way that you can capture the knight as well as the bishop,
Ah, oh my god.
but it's not so simple. It's not so simple because if you want to try and continue calculating what white should do after the rook takes on e7.
Yeah. So rook takes. White. Well, they will try to save. Ah, they can defend the bishop with the knight. So
Mhm.
let's say knight d6 or knight d8, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
let's look at knight d8 first.
Well, 98. We can attack the knight. We can go to d7, and knight attacked 2 times
Mm-hmm.
with the bishop and the rook. And what? And check is covered. There's no check. We didn't went to f7. So takes knight there, rook here. What can they do?
I think this probably looks like a win, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
there is also um very simple. There's a more forcing line as well. Actually, I'm not gonna leave that one away because that might be useful to the other line. But
Hmm.
okay, so let's look at knight. So you can take the knight, and then the knight goes to d6. Then what are we doing?
Then we can take the bishop actually, because the bishop defends the other rook. So we're taking the bishop, and then we do the fork on the other rook, on the opponent's rook.
What about knight e8?
We just go to f7.
Yeah, and then they go back.
But that's fine. I mean, we already won. We have two pieces versus one piece at
Yeah.
the end.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that should be good enough. I mean, you have to go to f8, otherwise it would just be repeating. So it's kind of
Ah,
like a weird journey, but um, yeah, that should be good enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can try. Yeah, take the knight and then take the bishop, I think, and then fork. Yeah. So here, just take the bishop.
Yeah. And I don't really see any other moves. I think also winning is bishop e5 because it just removes the knight.
Mm-hmm.
But this should be good enough as well, I think.
So taking the bishop is actually most forcing because
Yeah. There's no
we
other response.
it's just force simplification.
Exactly. It's nice. It's nice. Okay. So those were all the puzzles. I think getting towards the end, we were starting to get to a decent level, and of course, the first ones did have very important themes though, like don't be afraid to give away your prized bishop. It's hard to bring yourself to do that, especially in a fast game when it's a puzzle. It's not easy to spot. And the other one is just this really really common theme on F7. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's get started answering some of your questions. I think in this one it was related to playing h3 and whether or not you can play f5. And I think these are definitely important questions when you're playing the bishop's opening. And to start off with h3, you can basically always play h3, knight h5, and knight f4, knight g3. Knight g3 is not a big threat. It can never really happen. You always can go king to h2.
Hmm.
So you don't have to be afraid of h3. h3 would in fact be a good move here. Um, Also, in this game, I think you played b4, which is not really the approach you want to go for. You would rather play moves. You want to keep this queen side fairly intact. You don't really want to move it that much, and you'd rather play moves like a3, so that you can meet. I'm assuming you play b4 because you didn't like knight a4, right?
I wanted to play queen b3, but I didn't like knight a4,
Okay.
knight a5. So that's
Yeah.
why I prevented knight there, and then I played there
Right.
because
Yeah.
I wanted to increase the pressure on f7. In general, my plan in that game was move the queen there because it escapes the pin. Then take on e5, open up my rook, and just create a lot of like pressure on that pawn. Even if they will castle, like I was thinking that I can take on f7.
Yeah, it's reasonable. I will say, it's very hard to apply more pressure than the queen and rook and potentially a knight can defend f7. It's quite a hard
Mm.
goal to go for. And in general, in the bishop's opening, you don't find yourself going for this queen b3 and bishop
Mm.
c4 plan. I think a more reserved approach like a3 to prevent knight a, well, not prevent knight a5, but to meet knight a5 with bishop a2 and then the knight looks a bit silly on the side of the board. And your bishop will always be a long-range piece. The point of this bishop is that this pawn is pinned after the castles, which is very nice. It can also go to b1 in the future if it's needed, but it can stay on a2 for quite a while. And basically, as a concept, in this opening, your queen will often end up on f3 and maybe g3 after you play h3. And once you have very strong control over this pawn on d5, getting back to the point of pawn f5, that is when you can play the pawn to f5. So when your queen is on f3 and your bishop is on a2 and you have a pawn here, and they're all preventing the move pawn to d5, then you can go for f5, and you can play g4, g5, and you can even play g6 a lot of the time because this f pawn will be pinned, and then you end up trying to go for these checkmates with rook lifts down the h-file and stuff like that. It's quite hard to see all of this at the moment, but like I'm just gonna play some moves, for example, like here, castles, h3 takes, and then takes, and you can see that the control over the center is now very good. It's going to be extremely difficult for black to break that, and it's actually quite difficult for black to even really come up with a real plan. You often see like c6 and then d5, but here's where you can actually leave the tension, because this pawn on f4 always prevents black from playing this move d5. Because if d5 happens, then you take on e5, you get to bring out your bishop, and you can try and build your center control. So it's essentially a bit of a waiting game where you can start attacking. Black can't.
In this example, it's actually c6 loses the knight because of b4.
Oh yes, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, B4 is actually that was something that comes up in one of the Lichess study examples. So that's a good point. So yeah, C6 does lose the knight. I guess black really doesn't have anything to play for then. Like in this particular position, I really don't see what they're gonna do. So
Yeah, well, move the knight somewhere back and then play c6 and d5. But
so you're
yeah,
gonna use the
it's
knight
super
back to
slow.
d8
It's
and
super
then play
slow.
c6, and yeah, it's just unpleasant. And you're just gonna basically come along with your pawns. Um, the king can come to the side, and then you'll just bring all your pieces in and go for the checkmate. So that's essentially the plan with that one. This one was a tactic. I am assuming that because you sent this to me, you probably know what
Yeah,
the
I
right
reviewed
move is.
after the game. Yeah,
Yeah,
here we can just again take on the. No, hold on.
yeah. If you take,
Bishop is defended. Yeah,
yeah.
hold on. This is something different. Um, hmm.
It's basically a two-step process of the same idea.
Maybe it's like maybe here f5 and like try to trap the bishop.
That's interesting, but the
I
bishop doesn't get trapped. It can just trade.
yeah, that's well, that's a blunder, but I don't really see a clear like
Well, okay. Why does the bishop takes f7 and king takes f7 not work?
because of the knight, because the bishop is defended.
It's because there's a pawn on d6. If there wasn't a pawn on d6, then you could take here, and then you would have two attackers on the bishop,
Ah,
and you'd be able to capture it.
simple capture. Oh my god. So capture on e5,
Hmm.
but I mean they can just take the knight, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on here?
Hmm. And if you recapture with the queen, then they just recapture the pawn. And I don't think we can win anything there. Or
There's a move that the engine calls winning. It's like you're structurally winning, but it's like not. You're not winning lots of material. So there's a follow
uh-huh.
up.
Uh-huh. So this is after taking?
Yeah, yeah.
After taking on
After
e5?
bishop takes on f3.
Uh-huh.
And there's been the trade of the pawns in the center.
Well, I'm trying to see if bishop takes f7 now works. So after this, so takes, check, pawn check. I mean, we can drive the king to the open, but well,
Yeah.
first of all, he's not forced to take, and second of all, we lost a piece.
Yeah, I don't see a clear follow-up if after the capture. Essentially, the reason it's so good is because you basically win the bishop pair by force. So after the exchange here, and you have the exchange here, you you can play this move knight to d5, which attacks their knight. And if they don't do anything and they castle, you'll take the knight, and that's completely winning because now h6 is hanging, and you're going to checkmate them shortly. And if they take the knight, then you take with the bishop, which is threatening a checkmate and also winning the rook. And if the only other move they can play after the exchange and the queen taking is bishop to e7, in which case you can just capture the bishop and castle and be much better. Because of actually one interesting tactic that if they castle, you've got a move that wins in that position. And I know this is really a long way in the future, but I think it'd be definitely a good exercise to try and be able to see how the boards changed here.
Yeah, I still cannot like visualize everything, and
Yeah.
to be completely honest, after like taking with the queen, recapturing the bishop essentially, I don't see what our threat is. You're saying that there's like checkmate, but
Oh, no,
I
I'm not
mean,
saying this checkmate. I'm saying they've castled and they blundered a pawn.
still not see. So
It's
take the pawn, right?
I'm
So
gonna get a little bit closer.
yeah, let's maybe show it on the board because I really don't see it.
Yeah.
Take.
So they go for this, and then we put the knight in the center, and then oh wait, I should probably just show the simple tactic is just this one. That would be if they just blunder.
Yeah, that's I saw.
I'm just showing that for everyone else. Whoops.
But
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 this, yeah,
yeah, that's why we are calculating bishop takes. It's
yeah. And
harder
then
to see.
this one, I think you were okay seeing that one, right? If the knight's trade on the
Aha.
bishop has the double attack.
Aha. Okay, that's okay.
And if they go castles, then they're in huge trouble after you take the knight. Their pawns are getting doubled and they're losing h6. And if bishop goes to e7,
Then
then
we
you
take the
can
bishop.
immediately
Okay.
get the bishop pair and castle. And then what I was trying to point out is that after they castle, there's another tactic here that's very nice for you.
Yeah, we can just take on h6.
Exactly. And then take here. And white's completely winning pretty much. You're just going to stack the rooks. F7's collapsing. E5's weak. Yeah, this is a very good position.
Okay, yeah, for some reason, and that's the common pattern that I see. That I have some problems with visualizing the board after like 4 moves, 5 moves.
Yeah, it is difficult, but like the only way you can really work on it is just by just continuing to try. Like it's not really like
Yeah, for
the
sure.
further you get in these calculations, just like essentially you'll just get better subconsciously. It's not. It's kind of just how it goes. Okay, this one is more of a concept. This isn't like a crazy calculation, so that's nice. Um, Basically, they just played knight d7. You had this interesting position with the split pawns, and you've essentially got a lot more center space. And knight d7 is not a great move by them. So there's a pretty nice way that you can exploit it.
It feels like a Sicilian, some sort of, but it's not.
Yeah, it's like a this feels like a perk defense. I think gone a bit wrong.
Yeah. Okay, so what about this position?
Maybe not. It's probably like the Philidor. I guess that, yeah. Anyway, essentially you have to strike fast, otherwise black is going to try and consolidate all of their pieces and wants to get an ideal position that looks something like this. With all of their pieces there, and maybe the queen's safe out of the d file, which you've nicely put your rook on.
Yeah, so I'm looking at c5. c5 blunders a pawn.
Does it?
Yes, it does. We cannot recapture.
It might blunder a pawn, but it does open up this nasty pin.
Yeah, and then we go knight e5, and how they defend? Well, they go knight f6. Oh, we can. Oh no, I thought we can capture the knight, but knight is defended by the bishop as well. I mean,
what's wrong with capturing the knight? Bishop takes.
Oh yeah, and we capture the other knight.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was basically the tactical idea, and of course, two pieces is winning a much better advantage, especially with the messed up pawn structure. So let's just put it on the board. c5 or e5, I think, should be both good. If they don't take, then you're going to take on d6, and that's fantastic. And if they try and like move their knight out of the way, then you'll still take on d6, and there's a fork there.
Fork, yeah.
Which is also pretty nice.
And the other knight is trapped again.
Yeah, they have all the knights are trapped. It's just so congested. But then yeah, so you're attacking here. They have to bring back their knight to defend. And as you correctly pointed out, rook takes is a nice exchange sacrifice very briefly. And we've got discoveries on the queen. This c pawn is hanging. White is completely in the driver's seat here. Okay, that's nice. This one is going to be very short. This isn't really a calculation. I just wanted to explain why taking on b5 is not the way. Because once you take on b5, you don't want to open up this queen side as a file for counterplay for black. White essentially wants to try and lock down the center and the queen side, and then push all their pawns on the king side and go for a king side checkmate. But once you open up this file, then the attack is a lot easier for black to counterattack. Additionally, you don't have to go to b. You can go to b. You don't have to go to b3, which is probably what you didn't like because knight takes. But your queen is nicely defending c2, so you can go. Often the bishop goes all the way back to a2 here, and it's really hard.
During the game, I just missed that the c pawn is the protected.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, and something like here, of course, you can't go to e2 because then that is under attack. But even like knight here, and it's a very locked up position, so you'll have time to play these moves, like bringing your knight back around and in. So it's not really a big deal. That's all I wanted to say on that one. I don't know if you have any other questions about that as like an idea, but it's just.
No, I mean here we obviously will take the knights. Yeah, just the lesson here is to do not open the queen side because we want to lock everything up and attack on the kings.
There's also an interesting counter attack idea with bishop takes here. And if they were to take this way, then you can take that one. But the issue is that they can take this way and then two pieces. But that would have been working if the knight wasn't on c3. Okay, and the final one, I think you already told me what the answer was in this one. But it's the same theme. The theme returns. The bishop can often take this f7 pawn. And yeah, as you correctly said in your notes, queen h5 would pick up this c5 bishop. Yeah, something very similar can be seen in the Evans Gambit if you've ever played that opening before. Okay.
I think I already got this position a couple of times, but wasn't sure like how to proceed, so I just continued normally, like d6 and f4.
Yeah.
Is there like anything better, or we still?
There is something better, and the best move that you can go for is this one with queen to g4.
Wow.
And you're basically just saying that because the bishop has left f8, you can now attack on g7, and obviously the bishop doesn't want to go back, and so you're just asking black why they left this defense so soon, and how they're gonna defend it basically. And a lot of players go queen f6 after queen g4, which is already much worse for black, which is definitely interesting. And I would also be interested to see if you can come up with the reason why queen f6 is not great.
Knight d5, I guess, and queen has to go back. Or oh, nice.
But should you stop there? Should you stop there?
Oh, okay. Well, we can go knight f3, I think.
Oh, you're rejecting knight d5.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't look good. I
Okay,
mean, it's almost mate, but luckily the bishop
the
is
bishop.
yeah, controlling.
But my question to
Mhm.
you is, how does black continue from here?
Um,
I mean, now this is hanging and this is hanging.
well, most aggressive move would be knight d4, but the problem is that it doesn't really threaten anything.
Yeah.
Huh. So you're saying that you can go for it,
Yeah,
right?
I'm saying it's good. Also, after knight d4, the queen's trapped.
Oh. Um, with what? With knight h3?
Yeah, knight h3 and the queen's stuck. It has nowhere to retreat back this way,
Wow.
can't go back this way, and the knight just took away its only escape. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that one's
Yeah.
pretty nasty.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. And after something like, yeah, black cannot defend actually. Wow. I was looking at king d8, but
Mm.
it defends from one threat, but doesn't address any other
I
threat,
mean,
which is
things do
yeah.
get pretty dicey for white after queen takes g7, because now potentially they can go for d6, and if you take the rook, then what's black gonna do?
Well, d6 actually opens up the possibility for us to check on f8, which doesn't look good. Actually, it's mate. No, it's not
Ooh,
mate.
um,
No, it's not mate, but it's really dangerous. I wouldn't go for this if I would be black.
I don't see a follow-up for white though there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, interesting position is like both sides are attacking, but nothing concrete is
yeah,
threatened.
but yeah, that's an interesting point. So you've considered king d8, maybe not. Um, Also, what about d6 just allowing queen takes on g7? And then if the queen ever takes the rook, then there's bishop to g4.
Mm-hmm. Well,
But
we still have knight of three for now.
that's true. But knight f3, there's some more forking and material winning. And I wouldn't be sure what's going on there either. So essentially, you kind of have to just learn the tactics for each of the lines here, because the everything is it's such a crazy position, and you have to there's like two key ideas that you need to know to play this position. And that is, if d6, then you play queen takes on g7, and you basically just ignore everything, and you try and go for like an attack either on f7 if the queen ever leaves the defense, or you just take the rook and try and take the knight and just deal with whatever black throws your way. And if black does anything other than that and tries to play like king f8 or g6, then you need to know this idea of knight to h3, which attacks the queen and forces the queen back to this d4 square,
Mm-hmm.
which is very dangerous, because after knight h3 and queen d4, what move would you play here? That there's only one winning idea really.
Oh, feels like we need to defend the bishop, but mm, like intuitively, I want to keep attacking the queen because it's almost trapped. So I'm looking at knight e. Yeah, I'm looking at c3. I'm also looking at knight e3 just to defend the bishop, but I mean it doesn't feel right. You know,
Yeah.
the position doesn't really allow you to spend the tempo just to defend something.
Hmm.
Mm. What else do we have?
Well, I don't think you should necessarily reject the slow move like d3. Because what is the immediate threat of pawn to d3?
I guess bishop g4. No, it's not a threat. Ah, we can trap. No, yeah, we can trap the queen there.
How?
So the threat is bishop e3. I thought that bishop g4. Uh-huh. Okay, here we are losing the rook.
And also after here then here, and now there's two pieces hanging, so that's a bit risky. But there is another threat. We need a way to attack the queen and not let the queen take on b2.
Okay, so can we like go d3 and then c3?
Then d3, c3. Where's the queen gonna go?
Oh.
Yeah, it doesn't really need to be answered. The queen isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
The queen is stuck.
It's forced to take the bishop, I guess, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So essentially, what do you say? Oh yeah, the queen will have to sack for the bishop. Yeah, exactly. Essentially, the queen now only has one escape square, and it's being taken up by the bishop, so they're going to have to move the bishop back somewhere. And let's say they move the bishop back to e7. How do we continue from here?
I want something like rook f1, but I'm also looking at just taking the pawn on c7. But it doesn't. I mean, yeah, it wins the pawn, but nothing concrete.
Ooh, wait, actually, I think it might not be a good move, because there might be pawn d5 with a counter attack.
Yeah. Yeah, taking the pawn is just. I'm just saying that what is like attracting my eyes, but
I think the move rook f1 you pointed out is interesting actually, because you're noticing that this bishop and rook, I think, line up on the king, right?
Yeah, I'm like essentially I want to take the bishop and then take the pawn, but yeah, I'm trying to find is there anything like more forcing or more concrete, because this essentially just wins the pawn and king is still like gonna be hiding on d8 after the check. And then
Yeah,
we can take on g. Yeah, we can try to take there.
the only real question is after here, then d6. What are we doing?
Queen h5.
Yeah, just adding in more attack. And if they play this,
No, I'm more. If they take this, then if they go knight f6, then we just take the knight.
exactly, and
And
then you've
open up
got the double threat.
Yeah, and they cannot recapture. Okay.
Yes. You're just winning a full piece.
Yeah. So it's either rook f1 or queen h5 immediately. Actually, both moves looks good.
Yeah, I like rook f1 slightly more, and I'll explain why. It's because queen h5, after queen h5, you lose the possibility of playing queen takes g7 if black doesn't respond. Whereas playing rook f1 forces black to play d6 in order to get a tempo move and prevent this idea, so that then you can definitely get this set up with all the pieces lined up on f7. So I think that's essentially it's kind of a bit of a move order thing, and for that reason I think rook f1 has to be the right move. I'm also a little bit surprised that you didn't have any interest in c3, which actually isn't the right move. But if I was looking at it for the first time and I had the idea that I wanted to trap the queen, I think I would have started going for this, and it would have been I would have been looking at the queen hunt with like here bishop to e3, but the queen does worm out to d6, so
Hmm.
I guess
Well, here, the reason why I didn't even look into that direction, first of all, because my king is there, and I'm very like scared often to push the pawns in front of my
right.
king. So that's why maybe, and also I'm just gonna I was focused on the black's king,
Yeah, that's good.
not on the queen. So
No, no, that is good. But also we can't be afraid in when we're playing this opening. This is the kind of opening where you're allowing queen to take a pawn with check and then move your king to the center. So we can't necessarily be afraid to push pawns in front of the king. But rook f1 is I really like the intuition of lining up all of the pieces to try and attack the weak king. And yeah, so rook f1. If they go d6, you're correct. This is good.
mhm.
And then yeah, knight f6 was just the sample that I gave, but the game ends here with all the pieces attacking f7. So that was all good. That was all correct.
Maybe
And
G6 gonna be like
oh, yep,
more.
yep. Yeah, sorry. G6 was actually the one that I said out loud. But yeah. So G6, we have got a nice continuation as well.
Hmm. Can we sack the queen?
Almost. Is it winning?
I'm not sure. So I'm looking at
I,
knight takes c7.
oh, you want this one? Okay, I thought
No,
you were
no,
looking at queen h6.
c7, c7.
Hmm? You want
Uh,
a knight c7?
yeah, and then
Oh,
take with the
very,
rook.
very nice. I think that should get it done, right?
Yeah, I mean they cannot capture the queen for sure.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. The rook's hanging, the mate's
on
threat.
the other hand, they can just capture the bishop, and our queen is hanging as well. So what they will do,
Oh no,
like
no, no, there's a nice continuation after that as well. I had a different idea, which was bishop h6, but your one is actually much more stylish because after knight takes here, you're preventing the escape squares. I'm pretty sure bishop
yeah,
h6 still wins, but you're sacking the queen.
mine doesn't work. It doesn't work. Knight takes c7 doesn't work because yeah,
No, no,
because
it does
they
work. It does work. You just have to combine the ideas.
so takes on c7. Queen takes bishop.
Yes.
Then we go queen h6
I why do we have to give away the queen rather than
because queen is hanging anyway.
No, no, but the king has no squares. The knight has to capture,
Aha.
right? And then after the queen takes, the king moves.
Um, hmm. Aha. 98. Okay.
I wasn't
And
pointing, I wasn't saying knight e8. I was just saying that the knight blocks those two squares. Knight e8, there's bishop f8.
aha. Bishop is still alive.
But we have to remember something. What happened earlier what happened to our poor bishop?
Yeah, it was captured
It was captured. Okay. And then why didn't we want to take back the queen earlier?
because our queen is hanging.
Is our queen hanging on h6 now? After we gave it check?
Ah, after the check.
Yeah.
Aha, that's the key point.
It's hard to see. It's once
Yeah,
again
yeah,
the
yeah.
queen was hanging for so long, but just gonna verify this. Yeah, knight takes c7. What's it saying? It's saying like +7 and then it's increasing. I don't know. Um, okay, so we chose queen c4, which is the
Yes.
third move. It's giving some other alternatives, which both just give us a rook. So I don't think that's very impressive from it as well. Um,
Uh-huh.
but apparently the very top move is queen f3, just going for another attack here. I'm a bit confused to be honest. Bishop e6. Oh, and now the queen is stuck again. No,
Aha.
I don't. I actually don't know. I think our knight c7 is actually much nicer. I think that it looks like they're about equivalent when the engine thinks for a bit. So, in fact, no, knight c7
Practically
is the top
speaking, I
move.
think for human, it's gonna be It's gonna be really hard to defend
Yeah, no.
against the
Yeah,
knight c7.
yeah. Knight c7's now switching between the top moves. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
there you go. You're better than the engines. just got to go for it. But yeah, that was nice. Okay. And the only other try for black is h5, which is nice. I also did just want to show you, just in case you were nervous that this doesn't have the engine's approval, it does. So the engine thinks that white is doing well, even after giving up this pawn with check and moving over the king. And when that happens, you know that the tactic should be working out for you in most complication. Okay. So I just want to fast back forward. Okay, fast forward. Okay. So h5, and the question is, where is the queen going to go? I don't think this is too difficult because the queen only has one square that doesn't either exchange queens or lose the queen.
Yeah, g5 looks
b5,
good.
yeah. And the queen kind of has to return because now their queen is hanging. If you didn't notice, yeah, sorry, they counterattacked our queen rather than moving their queen away. And the reason this is important is because now the rook is like kind of a bit more active. It's a weird engine move, to be honest. But also they dislodge our queen from being able to access h5 and go for this checkmate attack as well, which is an interesting one.
Yeah, it's a good move actually.
Yeah. But we can follow the same idea with d3. And if they go for bishop e7, which also now comes with a tempo rather than before when our queen was on g4.
No. Oh, I thought we'd take. Why don't we take?
If we take, then they're taking with the knight. They're kind of getting developed. I mean, it's probably still okay for us. Something like here, and rook f1, I imagine, is what you like the look of. But
then yeah,
maybe they can go
d5.
for d5. So it might still be okay, but this knight's actually really active, so we kind of want to keep it here. So the queen can go to f5, and then they can attack our queen again, because it's kind of unpleasant. Our queen doesn't really have many good squares other than f5 or maybe d2, but what's it doing on d2? It's blocking the bishop. That's not nice. But then after d6, we actually have this once again the only move, but it's kind of a cool one.
Well, why not queen f3?
Queen f3. Well, I want you to try and say that for play the move for black.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's the other benefit of
before.
h5.
Yeah. Very tricky move. Okay. But it feels like queen is trapped already. Is it like f1?
Yeah, it's queen f1, and I gave it 2 exclamation marks because we've essentially moved our queen 3 times, and it looks like we're doing nothing. However, what's actually really funny about black's position is that in all of the pawn moves that they've made, they've played h5, they've played d6, they've been attacking our queen this whole time. They've actually been making it more and more difficult for their own queen to escape our trapping attempt. Because now this d6 move's been played. Previously, the queen was always escaping from c5 to d6. That doesn't exist anymore, right? So the queen can't escape. They give us a desperate check. And now what's actually crazy about this position is that their queen being trapped is pretty much unstoppable. The only thing they can go for is a5 to try and play queen a7. But in this situation, we can still kick their queen away. It's completely out of the game. And now we have like free reign of an attack on their king with their queen out of the game. Or you can just grab the c-pawn. So most players don't want to do something like that. They want to continue trying to develop. But c3, queen here, bishop to e3, queen goes to a5. And you can try and finish the job here with the nice queen trap.
Yeah, I'm looking at before, then a3. Bishop c1.
Bishop c1.
Yeah, it works.
And there's nowhere for the queen to go. They'll have to go for the knight or something, and that should be enough. Although the position's also kind of crazy. So, although even after this,
yeah. I wanted to say that it's.
is the queen trapped? Queen can go to a4 maybe. Same.
No. Here it's available. Yeah. We can repeat the moves.
No, wait. Also, there's a fork. So there's this. Okay.
No. Well, yeah, it wins in exchange, but doesn't.
Yeah, we're up a piece now though, so it's a full rook. But yeah, a lot of craziness can happen. From this line, you would probably have to look more into it, get some of the games of your own. You might need a bit of experience, but essentially the idea is you need to remember knight to h3. You want to take here and rook f1. Rook f1 is a super useful idea. It's knight h3 and rook f1. These are your two moves. Also trying to trap the queen with these pawns and this attack. So those are the only three things you need to know to try and play this line at least relatively well. I'm going to go through this one pretty quickly because there's not a whole lot to it, and it's kind of just one of the most annoying lines that Black compose, and it's one of the only real downsides of this opening. So hopefully people have stopped watching from now. But I'm going to show essentially it's the early knight to a5. And if you can sort of learn to get pretty nice positions with it. If you want to play bishop to b3, you can get out of all of these like these positions where you go for this bind on d5. But I still think the best approach is to go for knight to e2. And the reason for this is that you want to allow the capture here. And now you have the stronghold in the center. Your bishop can come out here. Your queen will go here. And then you will castle. And it's basically very difficult for black to do anything. The only trouble is that it's also kind of difficult for white to do a whole lot. Because white's breakthroughs were normally f4. But f4 was generally played when you've got this very strong central chain. And you don't really like giving yourself the isolated pawn in the middle if you don't have to. And as well as that, if you break open the position, then that should be better for the two bishops. So you kind of want to keep it closed. So it is difficult to come up with a great plan here. The upside is that against much stronger players as well, they can definitely just completely break down with the black pieces, trying to make something happen and then getting a terrible position. I've had that happen playing a couple masters before, where you just get super solid position, and then they do something crazy like trying to break in the center, and then just it goes terribly wrong. So that can be useful. Okay. So bishop to c5 is standard square for the bishop. They want to play d6, a6, get a retreat square for the bishop. You would castle here, and after d6, you play queen d3. And essentially, this is what you're going for every single time. You've traded off your light squared bishop, which means you want to put your pawns on the light squares so that you can replace the square control of the bishop that you've traded off. And if black continues developing, this puts some pressure on your pawn, so it seems logical to play pawn to b3. And in your games, you can make the decision whether or not you want to put the bishop on e3 to trade it off, or maybe you want to put the bishop on b2, put the knight in the middle. Essentially, from here, you are kind of just improving your pieces very slowly. There is a slightly more interesting way you can try and play it, which is with knight g3 and knight f5. This is probably what I would go for if I'm really trying to win. Because with knight g3 you can play bishop g4, and then you can also go for f4. And f4 is the move you want to play when you're basically just going all in and you're saying that I want to attack and checkmate you. I think it's definitely the most interesting approach. If you're feeling a bit boring, you can play bishop to e3. And essentially, after this trade, black just can't do anything to you because your pawn structure is just preventing all of their expansions. And if you really wanted to, you could play f3 and then make the rest of your moves be king h1, king g1, and black literally can't break through. But that's not really the most fun way to play. I don't know. Would you enjoy playing a game like that?
For sure, no. Like my plan would be one of the last games that I played was pretty similar position. It was from Sicilian Nitro for whatever my opponent played, and my whole plan was to just put the knight on d5 and just ensure that my piece is occupying the square. But the only difference is that here they have c6, which is the problem.
Um, I think the main problem is that you actually don't want there to be a pawn on this square.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like my plan would be to put the piece there somehow. Like I don't know, rotate the knight through the somehow.
Oh, you're saying that you want to play like knight g3
Yeah.
and knight
Something like
e3
that.
and the knight.
Maybe even rook there. The thing is that if they play c3, then the pawn on d file gonna be weak, and we can stack the rooks,
Yes.
and so that's gonna be like my plan here. I think I had this position with pawns like this and out of the bishop opening, and I still played f4, and I think I lost that game. But
Yeah.
uh,
F4 is generally a tiny bit worse for white, but white gets really good attacking chances. Um, but in the long run, it's not great because you have the isolated pawn and the double pawn. But if you can get a quick checkmate, then it's good. Another approach you can go for is this move bishop to g5, and essentially your plan. Um, you can exchange this one. Um, you can also
mhm,
retreat, but then there's some risks. But what I would go for if I wanted to play like this is something like knight d5, and they either take or they move back. And if they take, then you'll get the imbalance of knight versus bishop, and you'll just want to try and like push on the queen
mhm.
side and kick them back. Um, whether or not this is this is enough to do a whole lot, I'm not exactly sure, but you could go for that. And the only other main alternative is knight to g3, which I do think is your best try. You essentially have two ways that you can play it. As you mentioned, knight f1 and knight to e3 is actually interesting, but mainly the idea is knight to f5. Um, and you can try and play moves like bishop to e3 first. Maybe you want to get your queen to f3. Also, that the two knights can go to both of these squares.
Mhm.
But if you want to play it high risk, you can go knight f5 right away, and then your knight unlocks the e4 square, and you can try and play bishop g5 and f6. So this is probably the most aggressive way I would play it. It's still giving white a very small plus, which is a good sign. Um, but the issue is black doesn't have to take the
No,
knight.
it doesn't look bad.
Yeah, it actually it looks all right. You can play this and then this and f6, remove the queen over. It actually, I think it's probably a lot more free flowing for white.
I think uh, the internet is lagging a little bit,
Oh,
but well, either way,
yeah.
yeah. Now I hear you
Okay.
well, but either way, yeah, I definitely understand the general ideas, and I do like the idea of putting the knight on f5 or d5 as well. Um,
Yeah.
this recapture with the pawn to free up the space, the square for the other knight is also interesting. But I don't think like a lot of people playing like this at my level at least.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't be worried about like getting these positions. And either way, like I don't feel like they are too bad for white. Like you're saying that they are boring. They are like you cannot really squeeze out of them anything. But I mean, at my level, people just don't know what they are
That's
doing,
true.
and
Yeah.
essentially yeah,
Yeah. I ju-
I can just move pieces around and hope for the best.
that's kind of fair enough. I just wanted to show this because this is probably like the absolute top line that black can try against you.
Mhm.
Like this is what a lot of the GMs are going. And other than that, there is this one which I think is a much more common high level line, which essentially transposes into another game. To be honest with you, most of the stuff I showed you in the first And the trap lines in the Vienna symmetry. This line you're going to start seeing a lot, starting with these four pieces coming out. And after Queen G4, you're going to get a lot of Queen F6. I did just realize I forgot to show you one crucial thing in this one, which won't take very long at all. And it's after the king goes to F8. You need to know that Queen F3 should be played to attack this pawn here. Everyone plays Knight F6, which now has the threat of putting the knight on this square. So you have to play a move that stops that, which is Knight E2.
Yeah. Yeah, we see the arrow.
Yeah, sorry.
Which is logical.
I'll turn off that one. There you go. And after the move D6, what's the threat here? It's bishop to G4.
Queen D3.
Queen G3 is okay, but the problem is we
H3
want the
just-
queen to maintain pressure.
Yeah, just simple H3 also good.
Yeah, we can go H3. And if they try, they can try bishop to E6. Then we can go D3. And essentially we're going to take back. And the really big thing I want you to take away from this one is that there's a huge trap that happens if they go pawn to G6. And people fall for it a lot of the time. Actually, I think the line's slightly different, but we're going to get the same idea across here. So G6 is a big weakening move. The bishop can't go back to E7.
Bishop G5?
Yeah, it's bishop G5. And after the king goes up, in this specific position, we don't have a win on the spot, I don't think. The move, actually, knight here looks pretty strong, but they're gonna exchange off their light squared bishop, and we're just gonna have a much better position with them being completely pinned down and castling. However, there is a line which is actually winning a piece. I'm just trying to find it. Is it? It looks like it's here. Okay, it's right here, I think. And if you can get a situation like this, where the bishop can go back and you can attack the bishop with a tempo, then you can get this d5 pawn, d4 pawn sacrifice followed by the bishop coming in. So I'm just trying to see how this position came about. It was after h3. If they jump the knight in, you can exchange knights, move the knight out of the way, and then play d4.
Yeah, this is actually a weird move from black to go knight d4 anyway.
It is a bit weird. Attacks these two pieces, but you'd be surprised because a lot of people see this like fork idea, and they think if they take back, then they can also take back this way. And actually, that's a more interesting idea. That after they do this, what's your move that's very strong here?
Well, I like knight d2, but knight d5 is also good. I mean, both moves looks fine.
I'm pretty sure the move's d3. And the reason
really? Because we want to go
play it anyway, and
but
oh, wait,
it doesn't
no,
win the piece anymore.
I've blundered. That's not right. That's not right. So yeah, they can play this move. I missed that actually. It'd only be if the pawn is still on here. So yeah, I guess their structure is just very bad in that one then. And what was it? There's one more thing. Oh yeah, you can. If they just castle, there's course d4 here again.
Well.
Actually, yeah, because this is coming and then that's coming immediately, and there's no bishop on e6, right?
So if takes with the pawn, that's the most.
And then you want to play like queen f4, queen h6.
Yeah, that's logical.
And if they take, there's also the bishop covering backwards. And essentially, the problem of having their bishop not defending their king and all the way over here, and your control of the dark squares is so significant. You could even consider castling long and going h4, h5 and taking, which also looks like a lot of fun. But those were just the two ideas that I wanted to show you, in case they go for g6 and king f8, those kind of things against queen g4. You just return to f3. You just return to f3 exactly like this. You try and force their knight to come out, and you go for these ideas as they come. You play this one to stop the knight coming in. Once they threaten to attack your queen, you can play h3, and then you have this move pawn to d4, which just attacks them and goes for bishop g5. Okay. Do you have any other questions about that one?
Actually, one more question about the like when they trying to exchange the bishop on e6. Generally, what do we do? Do we take?
Oh
Because
yeah, we don't like to take that, and the reason we don't like to
not
take,
specifically like in this position,
yeah,
but
in
just
general,
in
yeah.
general.
In general, we don't like to take because then this pawn's actually really good at controlling d5 and f5, which are common squares that our knights like to use. So we often don't want to take, and we'd rather have d3 and this exchange where we then have all our pawns on the light squares controlling the center, while they have their pawns on the dark squares and still have the dark squared bishop, right?
Okay.
So it's like,
sounds logical.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be it for now because
Yeah.
did we have do we have any other lines that we need to cover?
This one's gonna take just 2 minutes. I just want to show it. I'm not really gonna actually be able to have time to talk that much about it. I just want to make you aware of it. There's not gonna be like any question, not much question time. But basically, the bishop comes out to here. It's the two knights, and you want to defend your knight this way, so you don't have to take that with the pawn. The most aggressive move is d5. If they don't play d5, you're just going to castle f4, same idea. D5 has to be played to prevent you from castling. And after this exchange, you can see that the knight's pinned, so you castle. And after they take back, a little bit unintuitive is that you take back with this pawn here. Their bishop retreats. If it goes to c5, you can. If it goes to c5, then you can go king h8 and f4. And if they go to d6, then you go f4, f5, and essentially you want to play knight g3, knight to e4. You bring in your queen. There's rook lifts, and then you just attack the king. This is just an example game that was played between some masters. White brought all their pieces into the attack, and Black actually resigned here, I think, because they were very upset about the position where basically White's just bringing in all their pieces and is going to start sacrificing. So I'll just show the finish that could happen, something like this, with just all the pieces checkmating. And if you're going to try and break through, the best piece to do it with is this bishop. This bishop that hasn't moved can always be sacrificed when you're trying to crash through, because this knight's a lot more valuable in pressuring this square, especially because this bishop's guarding. That's really all I wanted to say on that one.
Yeah. This line actually looks easy to play for some reason. Don't know why.
It is nice. As long as you know the f4, f5, f6 idea, then you can basically get it pretty quick.
Okay. Then yeah. I think that's gonna be it because
yeah,
I have generally speaking I have no other questions for now. Maybe next week we can discuss like middle game ideas or like how to attack properly. But let's discuss it on
I imagine it'll
in my
be helpful to have a look at some of your other games as well that you'll have in between.
Yeah, we can also go like next week do the like review or something like that. Maybe you will spot some typical mistakes or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Well, I think I'll probably end the video here. Thanks everyone for watching this far if you did do so, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.